Welcome to Divinity Original Sin, the first one that is, an underrated CRPG by Larian Studios that all Baldur's Gate 3 fans should consider playing. While this game excels in many categories, one of my favorite games of all time, the tutorial category is not one of those categories, so I'm here to help you get started in this game. Let's jump right in. So up first is character creation. Probably more of a boring section compared to the rest of the video, but a very important section. If you want to jump right to gameplay stuff, there will be chapter markers below. But as you can see right here, this game has two characters that you have to create in character creation. Essentially, there are two main characters that are tied very closely in the story together, and you will be controlling both of these characters. Now, before we get into skills and all that fun stuff, if you just click on customize on either of these two characters, over on the right side of the screen, you're going to find a category called AI personality, and both characters are auto set on no AI. And what that means is you have complete control over their responses, how they react to situations, their dialogue, etc. But if you decide to set a personality, in a way, you're kind of turning one or both of your main characters into more companion-like characters that are going to react on their own, and they're going to have certain dialogue responses that may go against what your other character wants, a lot of stuff like that. So you kind of have this dual main character thing going on, and it's up to you if you want to have complete control over both, or a very popular way of doing this is setting one as no AI, and this is going to be like your main character, and then taking your other companion and giving them some sort of personality. So therefore you have one character and then another main character that's kind of half companion in a way. I think that's a great way to play this game. Now, with that said, some of these AI personalities can be quite annoying, but don't stress out too much, because at some point in Act 1 you're going to unlock a central hub in the game where you can actually change the AI personality to a different one or set it to no AI. But moving on from personality, now it's time to choose our character's class. Now, keep in mind, this game has a classless system. The only thing that this class choice does here right away in character creation is it kind of sets you on the right path. If you're a new player and you don't understand the game yet, choosing a class here will auto set a bunch of customizable attributes and skill points and put you in a direction that lines up with what you typically play in games. So as you level up in this game, you're not going to be going down a fighter skill tree, so to say. More so, the fighter choice here at level 1 in character creation just gets you started in a direction that makes sense for people that like to play as like a fighter or a tank. You can just simply choose your class right now and go right into the game, but I highly recommend clicking on customize here under each character and looking a little further into this to try to understand what's going on here, because at level 2 you're not going to have any more guidance, so to say. You have to then invest into your character on your own. So go ahead and click customize under one of your characters, and on the left side of the screen right here you see that you can once again change the class, which is just a name really. And as you change the class, you can see that it switches up what attributes are set, what abilities are set, your starting skills, your talents, and all that stuff that you're going to be doing on your own from level 2 and on. Now, if you want to do it on your own right now, or at least take a look, choose the class that you line up with and then click on customize. And now we have abilities and talents right here. So starting on abilities, you can see 1 point has been put under single-handed right here. 3 points have been put into the defense category here. We have 1 point put into a skill, and then nothing into personality, craftsmanship, or nasty deeds. So this is the preset for the fighter, a decent way to start out. You may want to play your fighter differently, or you may not want to play a fighter really at all. Go ahead and just click the minus button, and this will refund the points that you can spend right away in character creation. And now I have 5 points to spend on my own. So let's say I wanted to play Scarlet here as more of a bow ranger type character. I'd consider putting a point into bow here, as putting a point into it will increase the damage, and then all the other weapon categories here have their own special increases when you put a point into them, usually crit chance or damage related. Now, it is advised for new players to focus really on one weapon type per character, at least at the start of the game, probably throughout the entirety of the game. So try to choose a weapon type that you think you're going to use with that character. That doesn't mean that you're stuck using a particular specific weapon, because two-handed is a pretty general category. So you can use axes or swords, or a staff even counts as two-handed, or spears. And then single-handed weapons, of course, encompass a wide variety of different single-handed type weapons. Please do note, this is very important. When you put a point into a category, if you want to put another point, it is then going to cost 2 points from your skill pool in order to get to that second level. So as you can see, 1 point into bows used up one of my 5 points, but if I put 2 points into bows, that second point ended up costing 2, and now I only have 2 left. And if I wanted to do 3 points into bows right off the bat, as you can see, I don't have 3 points to spend, so therefore the max that I can do is 2 right now. But a general recommendation probably is just to start with 1 point into a weapon type that you like and then move on to the other category. So now we have the defense category here. Each category here does a different specialty for defense. Very good if you want to play a tanky type character, or if you just want a little bit of defense in different types of classes that you may end up creating, such as a frontline battle mage. You might want some more defense than a backline battle mage. And right here is the skills category. This, in my opinion, is probably the most important category here, and this is where most of the fun in the game comes from. So while it's fun to focus on different weapons, really the skills are what you're going to get on your hotbar, where you get all the cool spells and the special battle ram abilities when you're playing as a tank and all that fun stuff. So I would recommend maybe putting 1 point into a weapon type, but then you really want to focus in on 1 or 2 skills. Every point that you put into a particular skill right here is going to allow you to learn more and higher level skills for that particular skill category. So arrow right here, if I put 1 point into it, I am now able to learn 3 novice arrow spells. I can't learn any adept or any master, but the minute that I put a second point into it, now I can learn 5 novice spells and 2 adept spells, but still 0 master skills. And when I get 3 into arrow, then I think it opens up the master skills to invest into. And of course, master tends to be more potent or powerful arrow spells than a novice or adept spell. A quick rundown here. Arrow is basically air and lightning type spells, so if you're into that type of magic, go for it. Expert marksman deals with a lot of ranger type skills. You get first aid, you get like these barrage shots, these conal arrow shots, and raining down arrows from the sky, stuff like that. Geomancer is earth magic, so like spikes and balls of earth and like these special fortification type spells. It can work really well with like the fighter tank type character. Hydro is your water spells and also your ice or cold spells. This is a very, very good skill tree to invest into if you want healing spells and a lot of CC crowd control spells like freezing enemies or slowing them down. I always have somebody that specializes in Hydro when I'm playing this game, or even the second game as well. Man at Arms is kind of like your more frontline fighter type skills. So you have battering ram, you have like whirlwind attack and attacks like that. Pyro is of course fire, so fireball and all sorts of fire type stuff. Scoundrel is your rogue like abilities, so the ability to go invisible, do certain types of like special backstabs and all sorts of teleportation abilities to get in and out, and skills and spells that are like that. And witchcraft is kind of delving into the dark arts and some blood magic. Now, some of you guys are wondering, can you play as a summoner in this game? Well, Arrow, Hydro, Pyros, Witchcraft, and maybe one, oh yeah, and Geomancer all have their own summon spells. So there is really no specific summoner class to play like there is in Divinity Original Sin 2. So focus on 1 or 2 skills, and this essentially makes up what your class becomes. And if you end up focusing on 2 skills, you're kind of like a multi-class in a way. So if you're playing as an expert marksman, ranger type character, but you also have pyro, then you're a ranger fire sorcerer. And there's some really cool combinations that you can do in this game, some really fun combinations. You can also just simply focus in on only 2 things. So let's say maybe you're playing as a ranger, you put points into bow and expert marksman and nothing else, and you're kind of like that core ranger type class and not really multi-classing into other exotic skills. The other 3 categories here are a little bit more RP focused. We have personality skills here, or abilities, craftsmanship abilities, and nasty deeds abilities. And really, like, this depends on how you like to play RPGs. If you're someone that loves pickpocketing all the time, that skill or that ability exists down here under nasty deeds. But do keep in mind that you'll have a party of 4 in this game once you meet your companions, and other companions can be specialized in certain skills while your main characters can be specialized in other skills. Now, I do just want to give a quick shout out to a couple abilities here that I think stand out that you should know about as a beginner. Lockpicking can be super useful. Ton of chests that you can lockpick into and doors that you can get through. Telekinesis can be quite useful to have at least one character that has a few points into it, as this allows you to grab items and move items in the environment from a distance. And this is a Larian Studios game, so there's a lot of traps and a lot of surface effects going on. So it's nice to have a character that has telekinesis. It can even be used to move things in combat. Lore Master is pretty important to have at least one character. This will allow you to identify items when you're out in dungeons and then be able to use those items while you're out and about versus having to go back to town and pay for those items to be identified. And it also allows you to see a lot of stats when you examine enemies in combat to see their strengths and weaknesses. Having one character that can do this is huge. I highly recommend having one character that at least has a few points here. You don't necessarily have to do it in character creation. You're going to find items out in the world that allow you to get extra points or points into some of these categories here, but you're going to want at least somebody early on that can do Lore Master. Crafting is also pretty important, although you don't have to engage with crafting and blacksmithing in this game. If you're playing on the normal mode, you can always buy potions and all that, but there's so many hundreds of crafting recipes in this game where you can make potions and arrows and all sorts of stuff. And if you don't have a character in your group that has a point in it, or at least a couple points when you get later in the game, you're not going to be able to craft certain things and actually make use of some of the really powerful items that you can craft, specifically health potions, as they're super expensive from vendors. I should mention though that blacksmithing allows you to repair items on your own with repair hammers, so you don't have to always do it at a vendor, so that can be useful. Everything else here, really up to you. Depends on how you RP and how you want to play. Yeah, let's click on the talents tab right now, right next to the abilities tab. And talents are essentially perks, but some of them are very, very powerful. And you only get, I think, 4 more talents throughout the entirety of the game after you get to choose 2 right here in character creation. I think you get one at level 3, maybe 8, 13, and I think 18. So this choice is actually quite important, and these can be very, very powerful, sometimes even game changing. Now, depending on what class, what type of character you want to play might determine what talent that you pick up here. For example, if you're playing as like a ranger, arrow recovery is obviously something you could utilize. If you're playing as a tank who doesn't use any ranged weapons, arrow recovery would be a pointless talent to invest into. But there's a few on here that work for all of the classes as well. I'm not going to go through all of them here, but I do want to recommend a couple right off the bat. Having a character that has Pet Pal is so much fun in a Larian Studios game, period, because this allows you to talk with animals in the environment. And while animals in this game, except for maybe the exception of the dog in Act 1, are not as useful, I would say, as they are in Divinity Original Sin 2 or Baldur's Gate 3, they can still give you information, and there's a few quests involved with some of the animals. And if you're not able to talk to them, you're not going to really get the same experience. So having one character that has Pet Pal, I think, goes a long way. One of my personal favorites here is called Morning Person, and I can't get into it right now because some of these, as you can see, some of these talents have prerequisites. And if I wanted Morning Person, I would have to put 1 point into bodybuilding. So when you're choosing your talents here, this may actually cause you to go back and maybe put a point into something that you didn't have before. So if we go over here to Morning Person, now it's up here on the top. Morning Person actually allows you to resurrect with full health. So if you're in the middle of a battle and somebody dies and I cast Resurrect on them, they just spawn right back in with 100% health, which is huge on Tactician. And if you're having a hard time on the classic mode, this can also be a very powerful perk to have on that mode as well. And then there's a ton of other really powerful talents. People are going to recommend all different ones depending on playstyle. I will say though, Lone Wolf is a popular one if you don't want to really run with companions, as what this does is it makes your character more powerful, but then it lets you not have a companion. So if you run Lone Wolf on both of your main characters, then you're essentially just a party of 2 and you can't have the companions in your group. Personally, I like to play these games that are party based with companions on at least a first run, so I don't use Lone Wolf on that first run, but it is certainly one that is very popular among the player base. So look at your talents and take your time. Okay, moving on to the right side of the screen here, we have attributes, of which you have 5 points to spend here. And if you have a class chosen, of course, it's already going to be spent into the particular attributes that Larian feels at least start you off in the right direction according to your class choice, but all you gotta do is hit the minus button to get them back and spend them in a way that you want. Now, attributes do a lot of different things. Don't stress out too much because, like I said, you get them every even number, so you have lots of opportunities to level into different attributes, and of course different gear will increase certain attributes, etc. But do pay attention to the descriptions here, because maybe if you're playing as a tank character or even like a caster character, you would probably, as a caster, think intelligence is best, but then you wouldn't really think about speed too much, because traditionally you think of that as like a ranger rogue type attribute. Well, speed in this game does increase the movement speed, the distance that you can move in combat, but also it increases your initiative and how many action points that you gain per turn. So regardless if you're playing as a tank or a caster or a rogue, getting more action points back each turn of combat, each round, is huge, because it means that you can do more attacks and more skills in a round of combat, or use more powerful ones. So take a look at all these. Perception, for example, allows you to see traps easier in the environment, so it's good to have at least one character that maybe specializes a little bit more in perception, but it also increases the amount of action points that you start off with in combat, so that round one turn. So a lot of these attributes do more than just what you think they would traditionally do because of other RPGs and how they're defined in those RPGs. Don't stress out too much. Like I said, the preset stats according to what class that you chose on the previous screen start you off in a decent direction, so don't stress out too much, but make sure to take a look at all of these. Now, below attributes is where you get to customize what starting skills and spells that you have, and you can only have 3 to start the game. Of course, if you have a preset chosen like the fighter, they're already going to be chosen for you, but if you want to kind of customize a little bit here and see what other options you have, just click on this little right button next to each spell or skill, and this will bring up this menu here. Now, what spells and skills that you can actually utilize at the start of the game is completely dependent on what you actually put points into. So if I have a point into arrow and pyro, but I come in here and then I try to go to the hydro skill tree and I select regeneration, one of the best healing spells in the game, if not the best, you can see that it's grayed out, so that's not going to do me any good. So I need to come in here instead, click on pyro and arrow, and choose out of all those which 3 that I want to start the game with. Once you get further into the game, a few hours into it, you're going to end up meeting some merchants that sell skill books and spell books where you can buy more of these, so don't stress out too much. And there we have it for character creation. I know it can be quite overwhelming, but like I said, if you just go back to the main screen right here in character creation, Larian sets you up pretty decently, at least at the start of the game. And as you level up, you'll start to learn more and more what these choices actually mean. And there actually is a way to respec, but it's not until far into Act 2. So take your time with your choices, create save points before you actually spend points once you've leveled up. Always create a save point so you can go back to it if you need to. But eventually you will be able to respec, but it's pretty far into the game. Okay, jumping into the game itself, let's talk about leveling up. So you gain XP in this game by completing quests, or by discovering new areas, or by killing individual enemies. Each individual enemy will award XP to your party members, and you can see your experience by simply going into your character menu here, and on the left bottom above your inventory you can see that the next level it's going to require 41,845 more XP points in order to level up to the next level, and your main character's level is right here on the top. It says Wolfheart level 6, same with all my other characters right here. Now, when you level up, there's going to be a golden arrow that shows up on the top left of each portrait, but the minute that you click into the character menu, that golden arrow goes away, and then the only indication to you to know that you have points to spend are these little green plus signs right here. So Jehan has 2 green plus signs, which means that I have 2 points to spend, and as you can see here in the character menu, we have a green plus sign right here under attributes, and then a green plus sign under abilities. Every 2 levels you get an attribute point to spend. We talked about this in character creation. And then every level you get an ability point to spend into one of these different skills here. Exactly the same as character creation, just looks a little bit different now that we're actually in the game itself. So you can of course invest more into hydro, for example, if you have enough points. But when you reach level 6, I think you start getting 2 points every time you level up to spend, and then it gets even more later in the game. Like I mentioned in the character creation segment, you only get talents every so often, but if you have a talent point to spend, there'll of course be a green plus sign over that. So keep an eye on your characters leveling up, because leveling up is very important in this game, like most RPGs. And like I mentioned earlier, in order to unlock the ability to use certain skills and learn new skills and spells, you have to have a certain amount of points into a particular skill categories. Quick reminder, when you want to get an ability or skill here to 3 or 4, it requires that amount of points in order for you to get it to 3 or 4. So arrow 3 is going to require me to have 3 points available, but since I only have 2 right now, I can't level arrow up any more. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with saving your points to get a certain amount of points to allow you to level up into a particular skill that you want to get even higher. Now, you probably should spend your attribute points when you get them, as well as your talent points, but your actual ability points, nothing wrong with saving them for a more powerful upgrade. Now, I do want to mention here, if you're playing on Tactician or Honor mode, it's very important to note that if a character is dead in your party, they will not receive XP in combat. So you want to keep your characters alive when you get that finishing blow on a particular opponent. Otherwise, they'll miss out on that XP. So on Tactician and Honor mode, you're always trying to keep your characters alive when you get kills. When you're playing on normal or lower though, or classic mode, you don't have to worry about that. If a character's dead, they will get XP. But Tactician and Honor mode, it can be kind of a pain in the butt. So keep that in mind. Since I've so heavily talked about skills and leveling up, I might as well now get into the topic of those skill books that you can purchase. So when you level up in this game, you don't just get this thing that pops up that says choose this or that skill. You actually have to buy skill books from vendors. So when you get to the first town in the game, when you talk to certain NPCs, you'll notice that many of them actually have a little icon in the bottom left of the dialogue right here that allows you to trade. And some of them are going to have a bunch of skill books for you to buy and then learn with a character that actually has skill points into that particular skill. So this vendor right here, Celia, has arrow skill books right here and also hydro skill books. So if I'm playing a character that specializes in arrow and or hydro, I'm going to come to her to see what spells and skills that I don't have yet that I can pay money to then learn and read the book. Across the fountain right here, we have another vendor, and if I talk to Fletcher here, you can see that this vendor actually has a bunch of expert marksman skills for my ranger type character. You'll also notice when you highlight a skill book, you'll see that some skills are adept skills. As you can see right there under Farseer skill book, it says adept. And then right here is a novice skill. And depending on how many points you have into a particular skill will determine how many of those particular skills at that level you can have active and learn. Each of these vendors over time, as you progress through the game, you're not always going to be in Act 1, but when you come back to Act 1 vendors, they're going to start having more skill books and more spells at higher levels, like the master spell books and all that. So what you see right away at the start of the game isn't their entire selection. It's going to change a little bit as you progress through the game. After you've picked up a skill book, you have to read it, and then it will be added to your arsenal of skills and spells. On mouse and keyboard, if you press K, this will bring you into your skills and spells menu, and you can see all of the ones that you have available that can be put onto your hotbar. Now, if there's a skill or spell in here that you feel like you're not using that much and you're at your max for the amount of skills or spells that you can have at that level active, you can actually forget a particular spell. So if I click forget on treat poisoning, that will free up one of my slots, and then I can slot in another skill that I wasn't able to use because I was already at my max amount of skills. So do keep that in mind. But when you do forget a spell, you do have to rebuy the skill book. So keep that in mind. You'll have to pay for another skill book if you want it back later in the game. Now, finding the NPC that sells the particular skill books that you need can be kind of a pain in the butt in the beginning if you're not someone that talks to every single character right when you reach a town. But I do want to point out here that if you go into the map, there is a way to set custom markers. Now, I don't want to reveal everything to you guys because I think part of the experience is learning things on your own. But if I just scroll in over here, let's say there was an NPC right here in the town. If I right click, I'm not sure what it is on controller, or left click actually, I can set a marker description. So if there's an NPC in an area that sells arrow spells, I can simply just make a note, arrow, and then I can check my map and know when I need to go into town to buy spells, what NPCs sell what books. This is a very, very useful feature. So make sure to check all the NPCs that you talk to see what they sell. And if you can't find a particular skill, it's there somewhere. For example, if you're looking for witchcraft skills and spells and you can't find them, well, you have to look a little bit harder, because on the second floor of the King Crab Inn, there is an NPC that sells those particular skill books. Now let's talk about inventory management, something that can be extremely overwhelming to new players, especially if you're new to CRPGs. Keep in mind though that this game came out way before Baldur's Gate 3 and of course before Divinity Original Sin 2, so some of the quality of life inventory management features that you might find in those games may not be present in this game. But let's say that you're out in a dungeon and you're picking up some loot on the ground. On mouse and keyboard, if you hold down Alt, you'll be able to highlight the loot on the ground. Then you just click on the text to pick it up. And then you go into your inventory to try to see what you just picked up, and it's an absolute mess like this. You have a million different items. Well, the easiest way to see the items that you just picked up is by going to sort by right here and clicking on latest added. And as you can see, the 3 items that I just picked up are in the top left right here, making it super easy to know what you picked up and examine items, identify items, all that good stuff. You'll also notice that you can sort by gold value, durability, weight. You can remove empty squares. It just shifts things over. And you can sort by type, which is the easiest way to neatly organize all of your items. It just puts items that are similar to one another next to each other. Now on the left side of the inventory here, you also have an all category, so all of your loot. You have an equipment category here. This is all the equipment in your inventory, not the equipment that you have equipped. So don't confuse this with when you're talking to a trader and there's the equipped category that you can click on where it shows all the equipment that you have equipped, making it easier for you to repair your gear. This is not like that. This is just all the equipment in your inventory. This is not your equipped gear. All of your equipped gear is up here. You can sort by consumables, magical items. You can sort by ingredients for crafting, which we'll talk about later in the video. You can sort by keys and also miscellaneous. Now also note, you can combine both of these sorting options here. So I can sort by equipment and I can sort by latest added. So this is all of my equipment in the order of which I picked them up. So a lot of different options here to make it a little bit easier. Sort by latest added is going to be the most used though. I use it every time I pick up something that I need to go into my inventory. Now there's something cool that you can kind of do in this game, and that is putting certain items into bags. So if I go over to Jehan here, he has a bag on him right now, and you're going to find bags all over the world. You can even buy some from merchants, but here's my backpack, and if I click on the backpack, as you can see, I have a bunch of crafting ingredients in here. Now the cool thing is, if I go ahead and split these fire arrowheads right here, and I take 2 of them, and I just place 2 on the ground right here, if Jehan is the one to pick these up, because he already has fire arrowheads in his backpack, if Jehan picks it up, it's going to go directly into his backpack, not into his general inventory here. So if I go into the backpack, now I'm back to 4. I just split it into 2s. You can also pick it up with another character and then send it to Jehan by right-clicking on an item, send to Jehan, and it'll go right into his backpack. So start filling up backpacks, having different characters specialize in holding different things, and this will kind of help auto-organize your inventory a little bit, make it much easier on the eye. So you don't have to look at what my inventory looks like, which is this right here, just a bunch of crap. I'm pretty bad at keeping things organized, even though I know there's plenty of ways to do so. Okay, next up, let's talk about your quest journal. And I gotta say, this game and even the second Divinity Original Sin game, have some really confusing bad journals. This is not Larian's expertise in these 2 particular games, but if you go into your quest log, which is L on mouse and keyboard, as you can see right here, this is the list of your quests. There's nothing that separates them into categories, so it's easier to know and see different quests and what they are. Everything's just in one gigantic list right here. Now do keep in mind that when you complete quests, they'll still show on the main log menu, so what you have to do is click on this filter completed, and as you'll notice down here, all these ones on the bottom will disappear. Those are all the diamonds that are filled in with black. Now, when you're working on a quest or when you complete a certain quest step and something is added to your journal, those particular quests will then have a blinking diamond right here. So if I click on this quest right here, I did something recently and I haven't looked at my quest log since I did that thing recently, and there has been an update. So when you want to come into a quest and read the previous updates of the quest that you've accomplished, you just click on the quest, and then the bottom line right here is the first thing you did for the quest, then the second thing, and then the most recent thing. Now while we're in here, I do also want to mention that when you talk to NPCs in this game, if you don't remember what they have said, over here to the right, on the same menu interface here, we have a category called, or a tab called Dialogues. You can literally go through all of your recent dialogue here to see what somebody said to your character in case you're missing some information that you need to be reminded of. Okay, now let's talk about navigating the map. So as you travel throughout all 3 maps, regardless of act, there's 3 acts in this game, you're going to come across waypoint shrines right here, which are a way for you to be able to teleport, rift travel to different areas on the map. You don't get these right away, but you get them very early on in the game, the ability to interact with these. Now, if you go up to a waypoint shrine, when you first discover it and you click on it, it will then put that waypoint into your list of waypoint shrines right here. With that said, you don't actually have to travel from a waypoint shrine to another one. You can simply just go to the right side of your screen over here where it says rift travel, and I can just click on any of the ones I've discovered, and then I can fast travel there. Quick note here, you will see waypoint shrines on your map sometimes that you actually haven't discovered, so make sure to click on them as you come across them. It can be a little bit confusing seeing one on your map, but then not actually seeing that waypoint in your waypoint rift travel list. If you hover over a waypoint, it will tell you the name of the waypoint. So this one right here is the secluded beach, and if I want to go to the secluded beach, then I just look for it right here. But if I didn't actually click on it, it might still show on the map, but it might not be in my shrine travel list right here. And since we're talking about map navigation, do note that this game uses a chain linking system. So on the left side of my screen right here, you can see my party of 4. If I want to move just Wolfheart and nobody else, all I have to do is just drag his chain away, make sure I select him, and then I move around with only Wolfheart. If I want to move around with, let's say, Wolfheart and Jehan, I just have to simply deselect or dechain Wolgraf and Lily here. Now I have a group of 2 that are moving, and then a group of 2 right here as well. Sometimes this can be good, especially when you're scouting ahead. If you have a character that has high perception and you're going through a dungeon that has a lot of traps, maybe you send your roguelite character who probably has good perception ahead to detect the traps. Also, when navigating the world, make sure to note that this is a game where you can loot pretty much everything, every barrel and crate. And there's usually a lot of good stuff in here. Scrolls, crafting supplies, identifying glass, which we'll talk about here shortly. All sorts of good stuff. If you loot a lot, you will be rewarded. It's not a necessity, but it will absolutely pay off if you do. And also note that this is a game where you can really interact with the environment. This is what Larian Studios is known for. Environmental interactivity. It's like a sandbox world that you have here to manipulate things and discover things. So for example, these boxes right here, I can stack them on top of each other. While you can't manipulate things as much as you can in like Baldur's Gate 3, because this is Larian 12 years prior, you can still do quite a lot. Also note that your character that has the highest telekinesis is going to be able to select items in the environment further than other characters. So let's say that the ground was burning right here. I would want my character with the highest telekinesis skill, which is currently Lily with telekinesis 2, as she can probably reach the item right here and actually pull it and drag it and grab it without walking over the fire surface, while Wolfheart might have to get really close to it in order to move it. And lastly, for map navigation, do note, of course, some of your quests are going to reveal these little golden dots on the map that tell you where you should be going for the quest that you're actually on. But what I really want to talk about here is, as you explore, the level of opponents that you encounter is going to indicate to you whether or not you're in a recommended area for your current level, and most likely where you're at in your quest lines. So if you come across opponents that are like 3 or 4 levels higher than you, even 2 levels higher than you, you're probably not really in the area that you should be exploring. With that said, these games are all about player agency and freedom, so try whatever you want. There can be some really cool things that you find and explore and outcomes that you wouldn't get otherwise. But if you want to play it the way that it's designed, go to areas that are around your character's level, or level up and then come back to those areas. Now let's talk about teleporter pyramids, which are kind of like a staple of Divinity games in general. And teleporter pyramids can allow you to do all sorts of stuff, but obviously they allow you to teleport from one pyramid to another pyramid, which can be useful in combat. It can be useful not in combat. There's a lot of really creative, fun things that you can do with the teleporter pyramids. But early on in Act 1, you're going to talk to a character named Arhu, who will eventually come back to you and then give you your first pyramid, and it's going to come with a side quest as well. And you're going to want to click on that pyramid in your inventory. You can also put it on a hotbar, and it will teleport you to the other pyramid, to which you can then pick that up, and then you have both teleport pyramids. Like I said, you can put these on your hotbar for quicker use. You don't actually have to place a teleporter pyramid on the ground to teleport to it. As long as it's in a character's inventory, you will teleport to the other character that has it. So Wolfheart has it right now, and if I just click on it on my hotbar, now it teleported over to Wolgraf, who has the other one and vice versa. Now, as long as you have characters chained together, all those characters will go together. So if I have a group of 3 right here, and Wolfheart has the teleporter pyramid, if I click on it, all of them went over to Wolfgraf right here. As you can imagine, there's a lot of ways to use teleporter pyramids. You can be very creative with them. A very common way would be, let's say that I have Wolfgraf right here, my rogue character, and I'm sneaking in a place that I'm not supposed to be, and I get Wolfgraf all the way into this room over here, which is guarded by some guards or whatever, and then I want to bring the rest of my team in because Wolfgraf is far enough past the guards. I can just simply use the teleporter pyramids, and now my whole team is inside this area, and none of them had invisibility to sneak in. You can also use it tactically in combat. Maybe you place one on the ground, kind of outside of the combat encounter a little bit, or perhaps through a choke point, and then you get into a combat encounter out here, and as long as everybody's chained together, if you click on use it in combat, which is going to cost 6 action points, your entire team will teleport back to that pyramid, and then they have a better position in combat. And the last quick little tip I'm going to give you here so you know what's possible, and I'll let you discover the rest on your own. If you have a character that's scouting ahead in a dungeon, let's say there's a heavily trapped area, pretend that these barrels are mines, or perhaps the ground is on fire right here. If you give that character both teleporter pyramids, and they put one on the ground, if they have a few points into telekinesis, they can probably take that teleporter pyramid and actually move it over the trapped area without having to move themselves, and then you just go into your inventory and then travel to the pyramid with the other pyramid. And then when you want to bring your entire team over, simply just pick up the teleporter pyramids and send one to somebody else in your team, and as long as all 3 of them are chained together, then bam, you can bring your entire team to the end of the trapped area. It's a really, really useful way to use them. So this one's going to be really quick because I don't want to spoil too much here, but just note that early on in the game you're going to get access to the end of time, and this is going to be the waypoint for you to get to an area that's kind of like your central hub in this game. You're going to be returning to it quite often. I just want to make sure that you all know how important it is to return to this waypoint, especially after you complete major beats in the story. When you go to the end of time, there's going to be NPCs here that will update your quests. They'll give you all sorts of information, and as you collect certain items, there's going to be a certain item that you're going to be collecting throughout basically the entirety of the game. Every time you find one of those, a new room is opened up here at the end of time, and these rooms serve a variety of different purposes. Some of them have like merchants that will have really powerful skill books on them, skill books that you couldn't find from vendors in the town of Syciel, for example. One of the rooms here is going to be where the companions that you don't have in your party will hang out. I'll talk about that in the next section of this video. All sorts of valuable rooms. Just come back here often, especially if you're confused, you don't know what's going on, you've been playing for a couple hours. Come back here and this might update you on a few things. You might have picked up a certain item that you didn't even realize that you picked up or you forgot, and then you have a new room that's opened. This is your central hub. A lot of great things going on here. Don't forget about it. On to the ever so important topic of companions. So when you start this game, you're just going to be a party of 2, your 2 main characters. But when you reach the first main town of Syciel, there are 4 potential companions that can join you on your adventure. But keep in mind, max party size is 4, so you can only have 2 of the 4 companions in your group at any given time, because of course your 2 main characters make up 2, and then 2 other companions make a party of 4. I do want to point out though, if you run the lone wolf perk, if you run it on both of your characters, then you're playing the game as a party of 2 because it increases your stats, but doesn't let you have any companions in your group. You can run lone wolf on just 1 character, and then you can only have 1 companion in your party, so you have a party of 3. But a lot of players will like to run the game with a full party here, because party-based RPGs, you know, companions are often a core part of that experience, and they all do have their own personal quests in this game. But I'm not going to tell you exactly where to find the companions. If you want to search that, just do a quick Google search and you'll be able to find that, but it can be fun experiencing that on your own. I do want you to know that there are 4 that can be found, and they're all right here within the first major town that you're going to come into. Now, I do need to tell you something that was quite confusing for me. So let's say that you've picked up 2 of the companions, and now you have a party of 4, and then you come across another companion. Well, you're not going to really know how to get that companion to join you because the option won't present itself in the dialogue. So what you have to do, if you know that you've encountered another companion, is you need to go up to one of your current companions that's in your group, and you need to ask them to leave the party for now. This is not for good. This is just having them temporarily leave, and what they will do is they'll teleport back to the Homestead, which is the end of time waypoint, shrine, travel point, and they'll be waiting for you in the Hall of Heroes. I don't want to spoil too much, but in the Hall of Heroes, you'll find them waiting, and then you can get them back in your party if you want. But once you ask them to leave, then you can go up to that other companion, have them join your party, and then if you don't want that companion actually in your party, just send them back to the homestead through the dialogue, and then come back here and just swap them out and run with the party that you want to run with. Now, if you're playing on the normal difficulty, all these companions will be getting XP, even the ones that aren't actually with you when you're out adventuring. So don't worry about the companions falling behind. When you actually have them join your party, they'll get like a huge XP boost, and then you can level them up to equal your two main characters. And last quick thing, because this was a pain in the butt for me, Lily, my second main character, I have her have a personality, and this can get in the way of recruiting some of the companions. So what you have to do sometimes, depending on what you've done with your main characters, is sometimes you might have to take your main characters and separate them from one another. So like send Lily over here, and then I'll take Wolfheart and go and talk to the companion that I'm trying to recruit, and that way that companion will join me and Lily won't interject and try to stop that from happening. So sometimes you have to separate your two main characters. Yeah, let's talk about a few items that you're going to want to have on your characters as you progress through the game as early as possible. The first item is, of course, lockpicks. Now, you can craft these. We'll talk about crafting in a little bit, but if you have a character that has some skills into some points into lockpicking right here, which can come from items that you have on or when you level up spending points, if you come across a door and you examine it, it will tell you the lock level. So I need 1 point in lockpicking in order to be able to lockpick this door with a character. So if I had 0 in all my characters, I wouldn't be able to lockpick this door. I could potentially break it down though, depends on the type of door that it is. But if I do have lockpicks on the character that has the highest lockpicking skill, as you can see right here, I have 1 set of lockpicks. If I right click on the door, then I can click pick lock right here. If that's grayed out, then obviously you don't have lockpicks or you don't have high enough level. And then you just simply go like this, and there you go. Now the door is open, and I can get into this area I'm not supposed to be in. Now, another item that you're going to want to have is a repair hammer, and it has to be in the inventory of the character that has invested into the blacksmithing skill. So Jahan right now has a couple points into blacksmithing. Keep in mind, you don't have to necessarily invest points into blacksmithing. You can find gear in this game that will give you boosts into particular skills. So you could focus on like your combat stuff, and then when you're ready to repair items, throw on a couple rings that give you a boost to blacksmithing. But the character that's going to repair your gear is going to have points into blacksmithing at first. I think you only need 1, but as the game goes on, you start needing more to repair higher level gear. If you have a repair hammer in their inventory, all you have to do is just click on a particular gear or item that you want to repair. You don't actually have to select the character that has the blacksmithing. You just have to have the repair hammer in their inventory. As you can see right here, Wolfgraf has a symbol of broken equipment or damaged equipment. And on the right here, you can see that it's actually a helm. So if we go to his helm right here and I right click it on mouse and keyboard, of course, you can see that I can simply just repair it. And there we go. Jahan repaired it, even though I didn't have to select Jahan, but you do have to have the repair hammers in his inventory. And I can do this for all the gear that I have equipped right here. It's not going to get rid of the actual repair hammer. Now, if you don't have a repair hammer or you don't have a character with enough blacksmithing, most of the vendors here do offer some sort of repair service. So in the bottom left of the center of the trade window here, you can see repair item. You just click on it, and then you can select equipped right here, and that will show you the actual equipped gear. So not the gear in your inventory, everything that's equipped. And you can click on every individual item right here that has lower durability and repair them for the price of gold. And you can do this with all of your characters, but it does cost money, of course, and you can't do it while out adventuring. But also note that each merchant that you talk to has different blacksmithing skill. So when I scroll over the blacksmithing in the trade window right here, this vendor has a blacksmithing rating of 3 right now, so that I can repair higher level gear. But you might come across one that doesn't have a high enough skill into it to repair a particular item, so keep that in mind. The next item is a shovel. A few of the vendors in town do sell shovels, but you also find them out and about and also in crates and stuff like that. But if you have a shovel on one of your characters, doesn't matter which one, all you have to do is just take anybody from your party, and when you come across a dig site right here, some of these won't be revealed unless you pass a perception check, but this one right here is revealed. If I just click on it with any of my characters, they pull out the shovel, and then we get to see what is actually in the ground, possibly a chest, or it might turn into a fight, or a new quest might actually spawn So just be on the eye out, or be on the lookout for dig sites. Make sure you navigate the map and walk up and down a lot of different areas because you can find some really cool stuff. Another item that some of you guys are going to want if you want to get into blacksmithing, meaning enhancing your weapons with like metal work. We'll talk about that in a little bit in the video, but that is a pickaxe. So as you're out and about adventuring, you're going to come across ore deposits, and if you don't have a pickaxe in your inventory, you won't be able to mine that ore. So there is a pickaxe sold right at Cilia, one of the main vendors near the fountain in Sicil. And the last main item that most players are going to want to have on at least one of their characters is an identifying glass, which goes hand in hand with the lore master skill. And basically, when you have points in the lore master, you're able to identify gear. If you don't ever invest into it or don't have enough lore master, you might not be able to identify a particular item, but in the beginning, having lore master 1 or 2 in act 1 can usually identify most of the unidentified items that you come across. So have an identifying glass on the character of yours that has lore master, at least a few points into it, or at least even one to start the game. And then when you come across items that are unidentified, for example, these stout leather bracers right here, in the item's description, you can see need level 3 lore master and identifying glass to identify. So as long as I have that identifying glass on Lily and she has at least a 3 in lore master, I can simply right click on an item out of anybody's inventory, and then I can identify, and this piece of gear will now be revealed as to all of its stats and affixes and all that good stuff. Really useful to have when you're out adventuring, so you can just do things on the fly and put gear on your characters when you're in a dungeon, because you're going to find gear all the time that you're going to want to replace with your current gear, but you don't want to have to always go back to town to pay for that service. If you find yourself in a situation where you can't identify items, go to town, talk to a vendor, and just like with the blacksmithing hammer here, to the right of that, you're going to see identify item, lore master, glass, and it'll tell you the skill level of the particular vendor. Then you just click on that and then click on particular items that you need identified, and then you pay the price, whatever it costs. Let's finally talk about combat now. So when you start a combat encounter, the majority of the time most players will be walking close enough to a group of enemies, then combat will just begin. You can sneak one player up and try to set up things, and you can also have a character get close enough to pull off the first shot before combat begins. All that can be highly useful, but it's quite tedious. So the majority of combat encounters that most players will get in, you'll just be walking up into an area, and once you hit the combat radius, the combat encounter is going to just begin. The first thing that happens here is the order of turns is established, which is represented at the top of the screen here. So as you can see, the skeletal scorcher here got to go first, and now it's Lily's turn, and then it's Bear Daughter's turn, and so on. And what affects the initiative order is a character's speed and perception attribute right here. So the higher that you have in these two, the more likely you are to go earlier in the order of turns. And also some of the gear that you have might have stats that give you boost to initiative. So it's your turn in combat now. The first thing that you're looking at are your action points, which are everything in a combat system like this, and they are represented down here by these green circles. So right now Lily has 8 action points to spend on this first round of combat, and then you can see there are 4 ones that are grayed out right here, meaning that she can have more, but she doesn't have more at the start of the turn. If I were to actually just not use her this round, next round she would generate a certain amount of action points, and then she would have full action points right here. But she does have 8 to spend right now. Everything that you do in this game, whether you move or if you use an attack, a basic attack, or if you use a special skill or spell, all of it uses up action points. Even taking a health potion right here, as you can see, it says AP cost is 2. So you're always looking to manage how much something costs. Is it worth moving this far? Is it worth using this spell that uses up all my action points, etc.? So for example, Ricochet right here costs 6 action points to use, but it's probably not a bad play because these guys are all grouped up together, and if I use this, it's going to get probably a decent amount of damage. And there we go. That was a really good use of Ricochet right there. And all of a sudden, 6 of my green circles are gone, and I only have 2 left. Now, it's up to me if I want to find a way to use the 2. Sometimes you won't even have a way to use them. Many times, it's even strategic just to save some of them, because next round, when she regenerates a set amount of action points, the 2 right here are already going to be there. So the new action points are going to go on top of the 2 here, and then I'll have those to use the following round to cast something potentially even more powerful. But let's go ahead and say that she's my back line ranger, and I don't want to move her up at all. I'm afraid these guys are going to get too close, so I have 2 action points left. And as you can see right here, if I move all the way back here, it's going to use both those action points. If I move to right here, it's only going to use 1. So this is where you kind of get into strategy. How much is it worth spending to move? Is it worth moving? etc. Now keep in mind, if you're only going to use 1 point, if you're being really careful with your movement here, say I want to move back a little bit, but I don't want to waste 2 points, I only want to use 1, make sure to actually use up the entirety of your 1. So if I move to right here, it costs 1, but if I go this far, it also costs 1. So you want to stretch that 1 as far as it can possibly go to get the most use out of it. Otherwise, you're kind of wasting some of that movement. So some of you guys are probably going, well, what the heck? You can only move this far with 2 action points. Well, that depends on your character's speed attribute. The more points that you invest into speed, or the more gear that you have that gives speed increases, the further that you'll be able to move on a single action point. So Lily right now can only move this far, but on a later load point that I have in this game with Lily, where my speed is much higher, 2 action points will probably actually bring me all the way back to the torch right here, which makes a big difference. So different characters, you're going to want to have different speeds, ones that need to get in and out, obviously higher speeds than characters like your tank, like my Wolfheart. My Wolfheart, it costs like 6 action points just to move this far. It's pretty sad because he's wearing heavy armor and he has a really low speed, but this is something that you strategize as you're building your characters. So once you use up all your action points, it will auto go to the next character's turn, or you can just simply click end combat turn. I'll go ahead and just use the 2 movement points. And there we go. Now it's my other companion's turn, and I go through the same process. I try to strategize. How far do I want to move up? Is it worth those action points? If I move up this far, can I still cast another skill? It's all strategy, and that's all up to you to decide. And the better that you learn your characters, and the more that you look at your opponents and learn what they're capable of, you're going to come up with different strategies. Now, AoE skills that you come across, definitely want to buy a few of those skill books. A lot of those can be really useful when you have a group of enemies in a single area. But also crowd control spells. Do not overlook these. The Hydro spells, the Hydro skill has a lot of crowd control spells that are really good, such as Bitter Cold right here, which will freeze a target, and it'll potentially have them frozen for up to 2 turns where they're not really doing anything in combat. So if I use freeze on this undead swordsman, he's now frozen for 2 turns, and he can't really do anything, which makes this fight a little bit more manageable as I can just ignore him for 2 turns. And then there's also another spell called Slow, which will debuff the enemy, making them not be able to move as far, and also it will reduce the amount of action points that they get each turn. That's also a really super useful crowd control spell, and I would definitely be picking it up with Jehan when I have the money to buy that skill book. One of the most fun aspects of this game is finding those new skills, learning them, and then trying them out in combat and seeing how useful they are. You can really come into some really powerful strategies with how you set up your skills and when you use them. There's also a lot of synergies in this game too. So if you have an area that's wet on the ground and you cast a stun spell, the stun will cause lightning effect on the ground, which may stun even more enemies. There's a lot of cool synergies that you can do with different elements. Oil and fire, of course. So if there's oil on the ground and then you have a character that can cast fireball, if they cast that fireball on a character that's standing in the oil, the entire ground will light up in flame, potentially dealing more damage to more opponents, even ones that you didn't initially target. Perhaps you have companions of yours that are burning right now, so cast rain over the fire and over their bodies, and the burning effect will go away, as well as the fire surface area. Now, as a combat encounter goes on, in your combat log right here on the bottom right of the screen, you can move this on mouse and keyboard. As long as you have the combat box checked right here, you get a summary of what's actually going on in the combat encounter. So if you're curious, you don't know what happened, right here it says Undead Swordsman was hit for 20 fire damage. I have an idea what happened if I didn't catch it myself, or I was kind of a little bit confused. Also, next to your portraits, you can see right here, Wolfheart has a fire square, and that's telling me that Wolfheart is burning for 10 to 16 fire damage per turn. I have a fire resistance of minus 30%, water resistance of plus 30%, and this is lasting for 2 turns. So keep an eye on different status effects and conditions that are affecting your characters next to their portraits. Now, another reason to have one character that's invested into the Lore Master skill, or at least have gear on that gives some Lore Master, is that character has the ability to, on mouse and keyboard, right-click on an opponent and click Examine. And this brings up a screen right here that will show you different things that are going on with that character, different resistances, what their stats are, etc. Well, if I examine this Skeletal Scorcher with Wolfheart, who has 0 lore master, only one category will show up, likely just the level and nothing else. So having a character that can examine and really tell you what you should be using against an opponent is huge. For example, this Skeletal Scorcher has a 200% resistance to fire, so using fire is pretty pointless. In fact, in some cases, using a particular element will actually heal an opponent, so it's very important to keep an eye on immunities and resistances. And if I have a bunch of water spells on one of my characters, I know right now is the time to start using water spells, as it will kill the Scorcher much quicker than any other element. This also goes for piercing, crushing damage, the different types of weapons that you're using. And keep in mind, if you don't have particular spells of a certain element, you're going to have items that probably will help you out with that. For example, fire arrows that you can craft or buy or find. In this case, the Skeletal Orcher is vulnerable to water damage, so I have a water arrow in my inventory here, so I'm going to shoot that. And it just does really good damage. Also note that different weapons in this game will have, in this case, there's nothing on this bow, but a lot of the weapons that you come across will do, let's say, 42 to 65 piercing and also do 12 to 20 fire damage. So being able to examine opponents and actually see their resistances and vulnerabilities can be very, very useful. Now, one of my companions died right now. So how do you get them back up? Well, there's a few different ways. I think there's even a spell in this game. I haven't picked it up yet on my other character, but early on in the game, the way you're going to resurrect characters on the battlefield is by having resurrection scrolls. You're going to want to have these on your characters probably at all times, and all you have to do in combat, it costs 6 action points to use, is you just right click on one and cast skill, or have one on your hotbar, and then you click on the character that's dead, and then you can actually place that character somewhere on the battlefield. Of course, you want to keep your strategy in mind here and use tactics, but if I place her right here, she's going to come in. Now she spawns in with just a little bit of HP, but if you have that Morning Person talent that I talked about in character creation, Morning Person is going to make that character spawn in with full HP, which is so useful. You can almost do entire builds around Morning Person, let your characters die and then just resurrect them and they're back on the front lines with full HP. It's very, very useful. Now, I'm going to give you guys a little tip here just so you know, because it can be quite frustrating not knowing where to find them, but Arhu right here, one of the main characters of this game, you'll meet very early on. Arhu will eventually go to the upper second level of this house right here, the same house that Captain Arias is in. It's in like the northeastern section of Syceal Village. Arhu will also eventually be in your central hub, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But Arhu actually sells 4 resurrection scrolls quite often. This is just so useful. 4 of them is amazing because a lot of the other NPCs don't have them and they only sell 1 at a time. So make sure you stock up on res scrolls, and also after you buy the res scrolls, make sure that you disperse them among your team, because there's nothing worse in combat than having all the res scrolls on one character and it's not that character's turn and you're not able to pull off a resurrection with a different character because you simply didn't just organize your inventory the right way. With that said, in combat, if you notice you haven't done this, when it's the character's turn who has the res scrolls in their inventory, on their turn you can split them up and send them to different opponents. So right here I'm just right clicking, split, one, then I'll send this one to Jehan, this one to whatever. Make sure to do the same thing with your health potions as well. Have your health potions on each of your characters, not all stocked on one. The last thing I want to talk about in combat is the flee mechanic, which is almost kind of broken and a little bit cheesy if you ask me, but it's always there if you actually need it. So if you don't have it on your hotbar, open up your skills and spells menu and go down to the special category right here. As you can see, flee is right here, and I like to put it on my hotbar. Now, as long as you have just a little bit of space between you and an opponent, if you want to completely leave the combat encounter when it's a character's turn, just click flee. And it just spawns them back at the last rift that you were at. It's unbelievably easy to do. And like I said, if you're up in somebody's face and it says you can't flee because you're too close, all you gotta do is walk away like 1 action point away, and then you're able to flee. And so right now, enemies are too close, so if I just move away, let's say 2 away, now Wolfheart's out of the battle. You do that with all 4, and then you completely have left the encounter, and then you can heal up and go back. And that's the basics of combat in this game. It's all about the action points. Movement costs action points, skills cost action points, using a res scroll costs it, using a potion costs action points. You just have to manage them accordingly. There's no magical armor versus physical armor shields that you have to get through like you do in Divinity Original Sin 2, which makes the combat feel quite different in this game than it does in the second game. Okay, so a combat encounter is over, or perhaps you walked over some traps and your characters now have half HP or low HP or just missing any HP in general, how do you heal yourself? This is different than Divinity Original Sin 2, where you can just pull out a bedroll and lay down and get your health back. With that said, in this game, if you do come across a bed, of which there will be some eventually in your sanctuary, which is like your central hub, an area that you'll be able to visit once you unlock it. But really, any bed that you find in the game, if you're near one when you're low HP, if you just lay down in the bed, you'll see Wolfheart's health starts going up here. And it's a really easy way to get a quick heal. Now, if you don't have a bed, you can also eat food. So Lily is low on HP right now, and if I just click on this roasted pig dish, she gets some health back. You can do this in combat too, but it costs 4 action points to eat, which is quite costly. Or probably the way that most of you guys are going to be doing most of the time, especially when you're out in like a dungeon, is just take your characters that have healing spells on them. I have regeneration right here, and I can just simply click on my characters that have low HP. And they will get their HP back. This is just something I do after every combat encounter. I take like 30 seconds to heal everybody up. And for the final section of this video, let's talk about crafting. I'll try to make it simple and brief. But as you loot things in the environment, look out for books. And if you're unsure of whether a book is a crafting book or not, just right click on every book that you find, read it, and then when you exit out, if it's a crafting book that contains recipes, as you can see, they'll pop up on your screen right here. So if I go into my crafting recipe menu here and I click on the tab recipes, as you can see right here, these are all the recipes that I have learned, from books that I've picked up and read. But please do keep in mind that you can still craft things without the recipe if you know what ingredients go together and you have a high enough crafting score. Now, Jehan is my character that has the highest crafting and also blacksmithing score, so I'm doing this with Jehan. As you can see right here, I've learned the earth resistance potion recipe. If I just click on this, because I have the required ingredients right from the recipes menu, I can just combine, choose how many I want to make, and there we go. Now I've made an earth resistance potion. But if you don't have a recipe and you just know how to craft things, or you look things up online, what the recipes are, you can make things. So if I take the penny bun mushroom right here, this is going to be the most common thing that you likely craft. Take penny bun mushrooms and an empty potion bottle and combine those together. This gives me a minor healing potion. Now, if you take minor healing potions and you combine those together, so let me go ahead and split these in half right here. 2 minor healing potions together is going to create a medium healing potion. 2 mediums is going to create a large healing potion, but you do need more points in crafting to create more powerful items. So many different crafting things that you can do in this game. Feel free to experiment even without the recipes. So if I take an arrow shaft right here, and then I take an arrowhead that I found, a stunning arrowhead, and combine those together, now I have a stunning arrow that I can send to my ranger character to fire off in combat. You can also create skill books. You can create scrolls. If I take this sheet of paper and then I take an air essence and then combine those together, now I have a blank air scroll, which can be used to create a random air spell scroll, so you can do more with that. But let me take you guys over to some of the crafting stations as well. Okay, I've teleported over to the area where I placed down my other teleporter pyramid to save you guys some time. And there are a few crafting stations here. We have the furnace, we have the whetstone wheel, and then we have the anvil. As you could imagine, some of these do tie into your blacksmithing skill. So if we clicked on the whetstone wheel right here, let's say you don't even have a recipe or know how to do this yet, just think about it a little bit. What do you use a whetstone wheel for? Well, let's go ahead and maybe consider trying to put a weapon into the combined slot. So I'm going to take one of Wolgraf's daggers right here, and I'm going to send it to Jehan, because we're doing all this with Jehan because he has blacksmithing and crafting. We're going to click on the whetstone wheel. My agile rondel dagger currently does 24 to 39 piercing damage, but let's combine those together. And now it is 24 to 39 piercing damage, which is obviously an improvement. Now, if we come over here to the anvil, I think I actually have a recipe for this, but I know it off the top of my head. Also, if we take an anvil and then I add a steel bar to it and I hit combine, now we've created a handcrafted axe. If I add an iron bar, now I've created a handcrafted sword. Then I can go sharpen it, etc. Keep in mind that your blacksmithing skill is what allows you to actually work with metals here. As you can see, it says it's required to create and improve metal enhanced weapons and armor. So it's not just crafting that you need to focus on if you want to get into some of the blacksmithing activities. Now, if we come over to the furnace right here, you can cook at the furnace if you want to. So if I take this raw meat, I think I have raw meat, and then we combine it. You can also do this with a cooking pot over a bonfire. Now I have a dinner, which is more potent, of course, has better healing effects. If I had ore on my character right now, if I was mining ore out in the world, I could take the ore and put it into the combine slot right here, and it would make an ingot for me, of which I can then make a sword, and I can go sharpen the sword. There's a lot of different things you can do, and the easiest way to understand the possibilities is by simply reading all of the books that you come across out in the world, or even in the towns as well, and just seeing what recipes that you learn from them. So you don't necessarily have to be creative on your own. Crafting and blacksmithing is not really explained well at all in this game, so I'm happy to at least give you guys an idea of what you can do and kind of the basics of how it works. It's all about just going into your inventory and combining items together and finding as many recipes as you can, unless you cheat and look them up online, and making sure that you have some points into crafting and also blacksmithing if you want to work with metals. And that's going to be it for this beginner's guide to Divinity Original Sin. I'll also be doing a guide for the second game at some point in the near future, so be on the lookout. And if you're just interested in any Larian Studios content in general, of course, whatever their next game is, I'll be covering everything you can think of: news, guides, lore videos, all that good stuff. Very excited for the future. Hope you guys enjoy this game. It's one of my all-time favorites, but it's a little overwhelming at first, so take it slow and enjoy.